Hello, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to cover a few basics that the angels and God have taught to me. Um, I was born, baptized, confirmed, graduated, taught Sunday school at a Lutheran church, and at the age of 25, I left the church for my own personal reasons, but from the age of 10 on, I had, actually, from the age of infancy on, I had angels and Jesus with me all the time because I was abused. But at the age of 10, I had this deep desire to learn the truths of the universe and of God and of Jesus, and to know and understand how our world worked. But, not but I threw myself into the Bible and learning as much as I possibly could through the Bible and from other people, speaking to teachers and um, ministers and visiting pastors and anybody who would give me their time. I just grilled them. um, and it started at the age of 10. And at the age of, going on up, I just kept looking for more and more and more information, wanting answers to burning questions because I had contact with the angels and with Jesus. And a lot of what was being taught in my church and other churches nearby just didn't make any sense to me. And so I would ask the angels, and they would give me some of the answers. But they're always careful to, tell me that when I was a minor that I needed to learn what I could, but follow my parents and honor my mother and my father. So I did. And as I got older, like I said, I went into teaching Sunday school myself. And I started going to libraries and borrowing books and studying anything and everything I possibly could on the subject. Um, when I was 25 years old, I realized that the Lutheran religion definitely was not suited to me. I also had determined that pretty much all Christian religions were, you know, following the Bible and not suited for me. The angels, by the time I was 25, of course, would speak to me sometimes about my questions, and they confirmed that the Bible um, was taken from many different books written by many different prophets, and that there were books that stemmed from, thousands of years before Christ, In fact, most of them did. Um, and there were many books that talked about things that were not written in the Bible. And the angels said that these are all good books, these are all good prophets. The problem lay in the fact that Emperor Constantine had his scholars picking and choosing from these books that were given to them, that the books that were used by Christians in their homes to praise God, God and Jesus. But they wanted to create one book that contained all of the information that they would need. The problem is that one book would have been huge. So they had to condense it. In condensing it, they took out large portions of the truth of Jesus's life, large portions of the truth about Genesis, large portion. They left out huge parts and information about women who were the moneymakers back then. And they actually supported the churches more than the men were able to. And the women were very active in religion back then. But to read the Bible, you would think that they were not. Also, to read the Bible, you would never know that Jesus was taught by the Essenes. I don't know that the Essenes are even mentioned in the Bible. I think there might be a mention that he went away to study, but I don't think it states out that he went and lived with the Essenes for many, many years to study. The Essenes were the ones that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so the Dead Sea Scrolls were written way before the Bible. And the Dead Sea Scrolls included a lot of things that the Bible did not. So the angels, when I was growing up, told me that there is a lot of truth in the Bible. There's very little fiction or things added that weren't directly from those books that were used. But there was a lot of information left out of those books. And one of the things that was left out was, God created heaven and earth. God created Adam and Eve. But they give you the impression that God took a ball of mud and rolled it up and breathed life into it, and it became Adam. And that he took a rib out of Adam's rib cage and did something to it, and it became Eve. But in other stories, not in the Bible, that I have heard, that wasn't the case. the aliens, yes, I said aliens, and angels who were sent here to help to create the earth. And they were also sent here to create human beings. And technology was even more advanced then than it is now. The Earth is one of the younger planets. And so by the time that they got around to creating the Earth, there were a lot of meat suits to choose from, and a lot of shapes and forms, and they chose this form. So we were created pretty much in a petri dish and planted here on Earth. So that's one thing that most people don't know. They don't know that there are aliens, which there are. And there are watchers who were sent here to watch us and take care of us and make sure that we survive and have what we need. So there's long stories about the watchers and how the watchers took human wives, and the story, it's a long story. But there is truth to it. They have been finding remains of giants. They've been finding remains of aliens. They've been finding remains of the Anunnaki, and they've been finding that a lot of the stories handed down from the Hopi and other Indian tribes, as well as other sources, are true, and that they have been covered up. Now, a lot of people would call it conspiracy theory because no one wants to admit what the true reason was behind Emperor Constantine and the scribes writing the Bible and creating churches and forcing people to become Christian. There were bloodbaths and killing people and torturing people to force them to become Christian. After they became Christians, then they were expected to pay tithings to the churches, and they were expected to support the church and expected to follow all of the doctrine and the rules, laws, and demands handed down to them. So I don't know exactly what took place because I wasn't personally there. But because of all of this, I myself left Christianity at the age of 25. And I haven't looked back. I've done a lot of studies of different texts and different books and different, what's the word? The stories from the Hopi Indians and the other Indians, and just trying to piece together for my own knowledge what the truth has been, what history has been. But there are some truths, many truths, that were not shared in the Bible, such as reincarnation. Now, my information comes from these history books, from many ascended masters, talking to holy people, and I'm sorry, my brain, I don't remember things real well, but talking to masters who have studied these things, who know these things, who also have spoken with the angels and God and Jesus. And when they start talking to you and start visiting you and start giving you information, you can't listen to outside sources. You have to just believe yourself and believe the angels, God, and Jesus, because most people will not believe you because they themselves don't believe that it is possible. They don't believe that they have ever been spoken to, which a lot of people have been spoken to. A lot of people have gotten messages, but they totally ignore it and believe that it just couldn't be possible. So a lot of naysayers out there get in the way of us knowing the truth. And so we have to make sure that we know our own truth and we stick to that. We can't spend time trying to convince anyone else of what is true and what isn't. I've also gotten information from quantum healing hypnosis therapy. I am a practitioner, and I have also spoken to and listened to a lot of sessions, spoken to the therapists and listened to the sessions. There we go. And during quantum healing hypnosis, people go very deep and they're able to regress to past lives. They're also able to, I don't know what the word would be, but to go into the future and see their future lives. Now, according to our guides and angels and Jesus, everything is happening simultaneously. It's all happening at the same time. There is no such thing as time. That's something that only exists here on Earth. We decided to keep track of the days and to find a pattern that we could follow. And it has worked for a long, long time. But there really are no timelines other than here. So when I'm getting information, there are no timelines, and they can tell me about what has or what will be happening, but it's not always clear where those things fall in our timelines. So they can't always give us dates on things. But when you have thousands of people being hypnotized and giving similar information to thousands of therapists, and it all matches up, to me there has to be some truth to that. They have to be tapping into something, and what people believe is that they're tapping into the quantum field, and that in doing so they can make contact with other realms and other dimensions. And so if someone wanted to talk to Jesus, they could actually talk to Jesus in his lifetime, and he could, answer your questions while he was alive. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but if we're all living simultaneously, that it can make sense. Now, going back to creation, it has been proven, I guess, that and this is what God told me, that God is consciousness, and he decided he wanted to expand and he wanted to go out and learn. So it was like he just exploded, and shards of God shot everywhere. These shards are pieces of energy. These little pieces of God, these energy pieces, are our souls. And these little energy pieces are in everything. They're in plants, they're in animals, they're in us, they're in rocks, they're in the atmosphere, in the air. Oh, gosh, sorry about that. And so all of us are connected. We've always been from the one, from the source. And so when we die, talking about reincarnation kind of, when we die, our soul leaves the body and goes back to source. And when we decide to be reborn, we're not always reborn here on Earth. There are many planets and many places where people can be born. And so our souls don't just stop existing when we cross over or when we die. Our souls continue on, and we may go back to source for a while to rest and recuperate and replan and redesign to determine what our next steps will be in our evolution and how we can continue to learn and grow as God, as the source, as our little sparks. So while we are making our plans, our guardians and guides are with us, helping us to decide what goals we want to meet and how best to meet them. Earth is the most grueling planet to come to and learn from, but it's like when you come to Earth, it is so intense and so difficult that it's learning on steroids. um, because right away, as soon as you're born, people begin to mold you and shape you and program you and teach you things that um, just hold you back and don't help you with your spiritual growth, really. Um, I guess in a sense it does help because myself, I came here and was born to a narcissist who was married to someone who she could push around and force him to do what she wanted. And so I was abused and had no one to turn to. And no matter who I tried turning to, no one would help me. So that was why the angels and Jesus came into my life when I was young. And I had to learn to be self-sufficient, to stand on my own, to take care of myself, to um, believe in myself. Because if I couldn't do those things, I would not have been able to survive. So, the angels and Jesus were helpful with that. Thank goodness they were here to help me. But that was my lesson plan to start with. And throughout my life, there were so many things that happened. Being homeless, being raped, being beat, somebody trying to kill me, just, a whole bunch of things. Both of my children dying, my mother lying about me and none of my family believing me or supporting me, uh, moving away to try to get away from the narcissism and the craziness, just to realize that I was a codependent who would continue to find narcissists or alcoholics or both. But it was through all of these things, that I learned to become strong and independent and to trust myself. It also taught me to not depend on other people so much, not to trust people. yeah, I do still find it difficult to trust other people, but in the last, oh, I'd say 15 years, I have been given the opportunity, well, 20 years, the opportunity to create my own life, to learn to trust myself, to learn to shape and create my reality. I had to learn to forgive. I needed to not allow myself to be a codependent or a victim. I had to put all of that behind me. I learned to live with very few expectations, because if you have expectations and things don't go the way you planned them to go, then most people who have those expectations have become angry and hurt and frustrated and justify poor behavior because people didn't do as they expected them to do. Well, I'm wise enough to realize that I probably wouldn't do a lot of things that people want me to do. I don't need to, I don't want to, and I'm just not going to. So I, realize that a lot of people probably feel that way. So in having expectations, you're always going to wind up being frustrated and angry and blaming somebody, which to me is just futile. Futile. It gets you nowhere. But if you have no expectations and someone comes along and does something really sweet and kind for you, just out of the kindness of their heart, and they take you out to dinner, or they buy you flowers, or they um, fix your car, or uh, clean your home, or wash your dishes, and you didn't expect them to do it. It is wonderful. It makes you happy, and it makes them happy, because they didn't have to do it, but they chose to do it, and they made you happy, and you appreciated it. So now I learned to create my life. I learned to write and rewrite my life. Now, about 3 years before, is it 3 years or 5 years? No, 5 years, I think, before my daughter died. She had been living with us for 10 to 15 years, off and on, from the age of 19 to the age of 32, I believe. She lived with us most of the time. And because she had a regular income, we did expect her to pay a small amount of rent, which, she didn't think she should have to pay. And my daughter was bipolar, and she had narcissism. and she was a handful. She was like my mother. Um, she could be very difficult to live with. But one of the things that I made very clear when she first moved in was that we would not tolerate any nasty, difficult behaviors, that if she did that, she would have to leave. And I never argued with her, but I always set boundaries and stayed firm with those boundaries. While she lived with us, she stole money. She stole car parts. She stole batteries. She stole ice cubes. Yeah, our neighbor across the road, Nicole, would go there all the time, every day, and spend all day over there. Well, Carl and I had gone to Menards, and we bought 2 big cases of Ziploc bags because they were on sale. And we thought that it was going to take us an awful long time to get through those bags, but we'd gotten them at such a good price that it was okay. In less than 2 weeks, all of our Ziploc bags were gone. And we thought that our ice maker was broken because every time we'd go to the freezer to get ice, there was no ice. It was gone, or there was just a very small amount. Sometimes we would hear it drop, but it just never seemed to accumulate. Well, one day Nicole was there, and I said, geez, we only bought these boxes of bags like a week ago, and there's a good 1/4 of these bags are gone. Maybe even more than that. I said, Carl must be using these bags for work or something, because, boy, they're going down quick. Oh, within 2 weeks, both cases were gone. And we actually went out and bought an ice maker for home because we couldn't keep up. The ice maker wasn't working. And, because we asked Nicole, are you using the ice? Oh, no. She wasn't using it. No, she was taking it over to the neighbors. But anytime the neighbors needed anything, whether it was a car battery or jumper cables or a electric drill or a battery powered drill or any tools, anything that she determined they needed, she would steal from us and take to them. Like I said, she stole money from us all the time. We would go to the store to pick up a few things and reach into our billfolds knowing we had money, and they were empty. And it's like, this is weird because I know I just put that money in there. So we'd have to use our card, and it was okay. But we determined at one time she stole over $300 in one whack. So we were very upset over that. But over a period of years, she took thousands of dollars from us. She went into my dresser and took my class ring, took my wedding rings, took pictures of her brother that I had been saving, and she cut them up. She found a picture of my husband naked that his first wife had taken of him, And I had found it and put it in my dresser, and my daughter found it, and she actually had the audacity to um, confront me about it and tell me that I shouldn't have such a thing in my possession, and how dare I have that. And it's just ridiculous. But like I said, she was narcissistic and bipolar, so we had our hands full. But she acted up so bad only about a year before I threw her out for good. And I told her that she had to go and see a psychiatrist and get treated again for her bipolar. Either that or she would have to move out. So she said that she had contacted a psychiatrist but couldn't get in to see them for at least 6 months. Well, it was actually 8 months before she supposedly went in to see this doctor. And after the doctor's appointment, she, not right after, it was the next day, she came out of her bedroom and she was so condescending to me intentionally. Every word that came out of her mouth was condescending and nasty. And she told me that she had seen the psychiatrist the day before and that they had determined that her problem wasn't bipolar, her problem was me. And that I was condescending to her and that she couldn't live with that. And I was too mean and too uh, demanding, which we never demanded anything of her. She was over the age of 30. To us, she could come and go as she pleased. It didn't matter to us what she did or where she went, or, as long as she paid her rent, that's all we cared about. But she just, she was not a happy person, and she needed someone to blame, so that was me. Well, she was acting up horribly that day, and I lost it and told her that she had to leave. And I told her that she had 5 days to come and get all of her stuff, remove it from my home, and don't think that you're going to be able to stay here anymore. You can come and visit, but you can't live here. So she left in a big huff, screaming, swearing, hollering. I called my husband right away because I had learned through the years that that's exactly what she was going to do when she left. She would call him and complain to him that I had thrown her out, and she would try to convince him to tell me that I had to let her back in. So I called him and informed him of what had happened. I said, I am her mother. You are not her father. I am her mother. And enough is enough. This is my home. This is the only place I have to live, and I will not put up with her bad behavior any longer. So I have put her out. She has 5 days to come and get her things, and that's just how it is. Sure enough, just as I was hanging up with him, he said, oh, Nicole's calling. So she called him, and he said, yeah, your mom called me. She talked to me, and you're out. We've determined you can't live with us anymore. You can't treat your mother that way. So about 2 days later, she showed up to get her things. And when she came in right away, she came right at me and started, being nasty to me. And I just turned around. I said, Nicole, I love you, but I can't live with you. And I turned around and I went to my bedroom and I said, you know, get your things and I'll talk to you some other time. While I was in my bedroom, I started talking to God. And I said, God, I hope that I am doing the right thing by putting her out and making her responsible for herself, by teaching her that she can't treat me this way, and that life, you know, she created this problem. She's going to have to live with it. It wasn't more than just a few minutes of me just sitting there quietly, and I heard 3 big boom, boom, boom. It sounded like what I would imagine a big rock door being shut, or, you know, banging real hard shut. And there were 3 of them. Then I heard what sounded like gates, big, heavy gates opening up. And I said, angels, what is this about? And they said, Candy, you just cleared your karma. You were here to learn that you can't control other people, and that you have your path and they have theirs, and that you have to let them live their lives as you live yours, and that you have to stick up for yourself sometimes. And so in dealing with your daughter the way that you just did, with love and kindness, but being firm and setting these boundaries, you just cleared your karma. And it's like, whoa. Okay, this is a good thing and this is cool. And it was a little dramatic to hear the doors closing and the gates swinging open. And so as I was sitting there contemplating these sounds, all of a sudden I was just transported. My body was still sitting on the bed, but I was transported to this little cabin. And I was standing looking out a window with white curtains, and it was a bowed window. There was a small round table with white tablecloth on it. There was a beautiful crystal vase with some white daisies, and I could tell that there was a window off to my left and a window and a door off to my right, and that there were at least one other room behind me. But before I could turn around, I heard this voice talking to me from the room behind me. And it was God. And God informed me that my number one priority was to clear my karma and to learn those lessons. And now that I had done that, it was up to me to decide if I wanted to go back to source and write another plan, or if I wanted to stay here on earth and to live through the fifth dimension and or heaven on earth. And that that it was my choice. I could die soon and go back, or I could stay there and live through this amazing experience here on earth, something that's never happened before, but would be happening soon. They still don't. It's been, oh boy, almost 10 years now. And, or no, let's see. Let me think here. 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So it's been about 8 years, and it hasn't happened, but I have faith. I have been given many messages throughout my life from God, and I was given some way back before my son died that I'm still waiting on. But I have faith, and I know God will keep his promises. So I'm just waiting on them. But, okay, I'm back at the cabin. God is giving me the choice to die soon and go back to source, or to continue on in this body and stay here on earth and to experience the fifth dimension, heaven on earth, the new age, golden age. So I chose to stay, as you can see. And God said that that's great. You can stay and you can live through that. And so it will be. And then all of a sudden we were standing. I don't remember walking. Oh, but we were just all of a sudden in front of the cabin on this little porch. We're looking out on the horizon, and it was so beautiful, and the feeling there, just overwhelming love and kindness and so much beauty. The colors there were so vivid. The blue was, I've always loved the color blue, but the sky was so blue, was a color of blue that I don't know if I've ever really experienced before, because it was just so vibrant, so beautiful. But we were standing there on that little porch, and we weren't really talking. And I looked over and I said, God, I love you. He didn't move. He didn't have any expression. He said nothing. And all of a sudden, I got this human feeling of, oh my God, he's not answering me. He doesn't love me back. So I reached over and I put my right hand on his chest. And I said, God, I love you. And he just stood there again, not having any kind of a reaction. And to me, that was alarming. It was kind of upsetting that God couldn't tell me that he loved me. And all of a sudden, you know, just, he didn't say it with his mouth, but he said goodbye and he left. Just, he was gone. And all of a sudden, I was back in my body sitting on my bed as though nothing had happened, but I knew that this had happened. And I asked the angels, I said, that was really a weird experience, but I told God that I loved him, and God did not answer me back. Um, why didn't God say he loved me? Doesn't he love me? I thought God truly loved me. And the angels laughed at me. And they said, "You foolish human." I said, "What?" They said, "You humans are so sensitive and have these crazy expectations." They said, "Can't you understand that if God didn't love you, you would not have been in his presence? He would not be in your life. You would not bear his mark of protection and love. He is constantly making sure that you have what you need. He is with you always. His presence is his love. So you're telling love that you love it, and you are love, and he is love." And it's just, and it's like, oh, blow my mind. But I had to laugh too. It's like, oh, okay, I get it now. That's, yeah, God loves me. He's always loved me. He's always going to love me. He loves you. And it's his presence in our lives. So through that, it helped me to learn to understand unconditional love. I have an ex-boyfriend who's a friend of mine and Carl's, and he finds it hard to believe that I have this unconditional love for him and for Carl and for everybody in my life. I just love people because I love people because they are there and I am there and I love them. And I don't put conditions on the love that I have for people. When you start putting conditions on it, it's no longer love. I'm not sure what to call it, but it isn't love. So, anyway, we touched on reincarnation. We touched on the Big Bang Theory and how the Earth was created and how we were created and put here. Um, we touched on everything happening simultaneously. We touched on the unconditional love. I've talked about faith and forgiveness. Um, the angels also want me to talk about gratitude. If you want to change your life, you need to stop living in the past and you need to stop worrying about the future. And you need to just live in the moment. And you need to be grateful for everything that you have in your life that is good. When you can live in love, in light, in gratitude, that is when you can manifest and create anything and everything that you want to need in your life. That's when you can begin to overwrite the life that you found yourself in that you didn't like. That's when you can start creating the love in your life that you need and finding that love right here within yourself. If you can't find that love in here, the love from God, the love from the universe, the love from all of those souls that are connected to you, your own love, then you aren't looking very deep. You aren't trying very hard. And you're stuck in the old system, the old ways of believing that everything has to come from out here. And when you believe that everything has to come from out there, then you are living in the ego. And you're going to have more of the same that you have had, and you're going to have a real difficult time changing anything. When, sorry, goodness, when I began changing my life, I sat down with pen and paper and started writing out things that I really wanted in my life. I wanted unconditional loving relationship with myself, unconditional loving relationship with my spouse, unconditional loving relationship with the universe. I wanted happiness and joy. I want love and kindness to and from everybody that I come in contact with. I just want to live in peace and harmony with the world. Being able to spend time in nature, being able to paint and draw and create things. And all of these things I wrote down. I also wrote down, a few material things, such as I would like to have enough money that within a few years I can help Carl to retire early. That within a few years we can afford to build a home without having to take out a mortgage. That we can move up here to our land and sell everything else that we have. There's just a lot of things. I wanted to be able to earn money without having to go out to a job. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to work with the angels. I wanted to be able to help people. Just on and on and on and on. And I have been able to create the majority of those things in my life. And it is beautiful. It's wonderful. But you have to just be very clear on what it is you want. So you can set goals and you can work towards creating these things and work consciously on having your needs, wants, and goals met. So I hope that this has been helpful. There's a whole lot more, so much more information. And I know that I covered an awful lot in this hour. Um, and I'll be back to talk about some of this stuff again. But blessings, love, light, namaste. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.